Well, I'm Emma Pollock, and I've been in the music industry since 1994, when my band, the Delgados, was formed with another three, Paul Savage, my husband, and Alan Woodward and Stuart Henderson. And we then started Chemical Underground in 1995, the record label, which is still running today. And over that course of the next 10 years, we were the band and we were the label at the same time, and then the band split in 2005. It was a bit of a tough year, actually. And I became a solo artist out of, I guess, necessity at the time. And now I've actually been a solo artist for longer than I was in that band. So it is an interesting picture when you look at it from afar now, the differences and the similarities. It's like many things, you miss some things and you really don't miss other things. It was quite stressful being in the band because actually I think when you're a young band, you feel a lot of pressure. And that's partly because of your age, because you want big things to happen. And I actually feel that we killed a lot of the enjoyment by being the record company as well, because you begin to quantify and monetize what is essentially an arts product, or an arts project rather, and that kind of killed it in some ways. I mean, I think for some of us, I think Stuart, for example, was so good with the label that he sometimes had his eye more on that side of it than the band. Or maybe he felt the pressure to sell just as many records as some of our contemporaries were selling. It complicated the context. But you also got to see that Chemical Underground afforded us a possibility to release 5 albums, when if Delgados had maybe gone to London and been signed to a major, which was a possibility at the time, we might not have been able to release 5 albums because we probably wouldn't have sold enough records to justify a major investment, a major record company long-term contract. So I think, in actual fact, the freedom that Chemical Underground afforded us allowed us to grow at a comfortable pace as a band. But okay, so fast forward to where I am now, it's much harder in this industry now to actually make a living. But I benefit probably from the longevity of my career now. People know to some extent who I am, but I would say that that's mainly Scotland, if I was being quite honest. I think as soon as I go outside of Scotland, then maybe I still have a lot of work to do. But it's harder now because the internet has changed things so much that for all that it has made the industry global, I think it's actually localised most of the music industry, to be quite honest. It's possible for bands now to become quite big in their city. It's not as easy for them to become big in the country. It's not as easy for them to tour internationally, because when there are no records being sold, there is no money coming in, and there's no record company to give them £30,000 to tour America for 5 weeks, which is exactly what was happening 20, 15 years ago. Well, there was an industry at the beginning to tap into, which is exactly why we did it. When you take a step back and look at the music industry, which is exactly what we're doing now with the Rip It Up exhibition at the National Museum, with the television series and the radio series, you begin to understand that the record industry is very short-lived, and it's only been going since the 1940s or 50s. It's really only post-war. And in that time, we've seen 2 peaks. We've seen a peak of vinyl in the late 70s. And it's really funny if you look back and watch documentaries of the record industry in the 70s, because when vinyl began to decline, the sales peaked and declined after it was 78, 79, everyone thought it was over. They genuinely thought the record industry was over. But then the CD came in and everybody started buying records again, because either they were buying the same records they already owned because they thought the CD was better. We didn't know.